Good evening, Tony Eastley with a news update. An American medical experiment aimed at helping infertile women to have children has sparked off a worldwide storm of debate. The experiment has resulted in the birth of 30 children who carry genetic material from their parents and from a donor. The scientists admit that the new genetic material will be passed on to future generations.
It's the first time scientists have altered the genes that humans pass on to future generations. Up to 30 such babies have been born, 15 the product of an experimental program at a United States laboratory. Eggs from women who could not conceive were transplanted with genes from the mitochondria or cell material of fertile women. It's now been confirmed the new babies have genetic material from both the birth mother and the donor. The chairman of the Australian Medical Association's Ethics Committee says the process is far too risky to be undertaken.
It is venturing into territory which has enormous implications for future generations and over which there are too many question marks.
Dr Mudge says treating adults with gene therapy is fine, but treating embryos is a completely different story because the alterations will be passed on. Joe O'Brien, ABC News.
For the first time in 300 years, a tiny Dutch ship is about to travel the legendary spice route between Asia and Europe. The Australian-built replica of the 17th century Diveken set out today to retrace its great voyage of exploration and then to follow the spice route back to the Netherlands. In 1606, the original Diveken mapped the Cape York Peninsula and recorded the first contacts between Aborigines and Europeans. The ship, just 24 metres long, is carrying 16 Australian and Dutch volunteers. But the Diveken will be back home in 2003 to take up a place in a permanent maritime exhibition in Fremantle. More than 20 people have been injured in a freak accident at one of the world's leading amusement parks. A large oak tree suddenly toppled over in the Disneyland park at ANAHEIM in California. Although the fall of the tree was broken by a fast food wagon, an estimated 22 visitors were injured. A Disneyland spokesman said none of the injuries were serious and all the victims had gone home. There have been 6 accidents in the theme park in the past 6 months. In the worst, a tourist was killed in a sailing ship ride mishap. They were perhaps the least recognised wartime forces, but their work was remembered today at a reunion. The women of the Land Army kept Australia's rural production going when the men went off to war. The reunion took place in Bathurst, where many stayed during their journeys around the country. Land Army girls were recruited as young as 16 and travelled Australia following the harvesting. Although they kept rural Australia going during the war, federal governments didn't recognise their service until 1985. A spectacular sight at Singleton in New South Wales today as American paratroopers staged a mass jump as part of an army exercise. 4 giant Starlifter transport aircraft brought the paratroopers directly from Hawaii to Australia. 280 special forces made the jump as part of a joint Australian-American exercise called Tandem Thrust. The American soldiers will train for 3 weeks with Australia's 3rd Battalion. Finally, a quick look at the weather for tomorrow. Showers for Sydney, Brisbane, Hobart and Perth. Morning fog, then a fine day for Melbourne. Sunny periods for Adelaide and a fine sunny day for Darwin and Canberra. From me, good night.